Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. How the devil are you doing this Sunday? I hope you're all fit and well. Happy New Year. Welcome to 2024. I trust you all had a good break and that you're now fully refreshed, like I am, ready to start the new year. Now, before we go any further, a few points of note. First of all, good morning to all of those now watching us live on Instagram for the first time. Never been able to do this before. Our broadcast software was actually updated during the festive break, allowing us to broadcast direct and live to Instagram for the very first time. So rather than having to cut up the video afterwards and then post it over on Instagram, we are now live on Instagram. And just to prove it, I'm actually looking at myself now. So that's a good start. So welcome to all of those that are over on Instagram. Now, the connection between us and Instagram is not perfect by any means. This is the first iteration of the updated software, so there are still a few bugs to iron out. One of them being comments. If you are watching on Instagram, please feel free to comment, although the only way I'm going to be able to pick it up is on my mobile phone, which is going to be hard to spot while I'm working two screens. So if you really want to get your point across, hop on over to YouTube or Facebook and find the show there. And we'll be able to digest your comments a lot more easily. I'm going to say good morning to, let's have a look, Kent Demolition. Dave Paget has just joined the show. Just so you know, and I will tell you about this in just a second, we've reconfigured the studio. So I am now working on two screens. I've got this one here, which is where the camera and the light and everything else is. But over here, I've got all of your comments. So if you do find me looking back and forth, it's for a good reason. It's to make things easier for me because, you know, I'm a man of a certain age and the eyesight is not what it used to be. Now, speaking of comments, as we were just a moment ago, those watching on Twitter, or X as it's now known, can now comment directly into our broadcast as well for the first time. So if you're watching live over on Twitter, please drop us a line and let us know who you are and where you are. Hopefully that should appear in my comments, which are sat over there. Hopefully that all makes my life a bit easier. Now, it does mean I'm looking in two places. Just in case you think I'm staring off into the distance, I'm really not. I'm trying to run two things at the same time. Now, without further ado, let's start as we mean to go on, shall we? I'm going to roll the intro. Try to post the question of the day, and if it doesn't work, I'll come back to it. And we're going to get this show very much on the road. And if it doesn't work, there's a perfectly good reason for it. And it's because I'm an idiot. Let's start the show, shall we? Yeah, thankfully, it turns out that our Stream Deck is working. It wasn't working first thing this morning, but it's just leapt into life. So while I'm here, let me just rattle back through. I'm going to say good morning to Dan Cullen, to Gary Muirhead, to Graham Footy Williams, to Mark Whiting, to Dave Paget over at Kent Demolition, to Glenn Johnston, who's just joined us as well, and anybody else that is actually taking part today. If you are over on Instagram, as I've said, please jump on over to Facebook or YouTube if you really want to make your point heard, because it's going to be a lot easier for me to digest it there. Now, yes, it is Monday. It is Monday, the 8th of January. You can tell I'm out of practice, can't you? It is Monday, the 8th of January. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony. In today's show, we're checking out one of the latest Kobelco excavators as it goes to work in Ireland. We're on the move with Merlo Mobility, Northentrack, attachments and people you can trust. Plus, Chinese manufacturer Shantui has solved the problem of trailing electric cables, but not necessarily in a good way. But before we get to all of that, we're going to peer back through the mists of time to see what was happening on this very day in history. Yeah, on this day in 1790, George Washington delivered the first ever State of the Union address, his wooden teeth clanking throughout. In 1902, I've never heard this before. In 1902, a bill was passed in New York to criminalize men for, and I quote, turning around on a street and looking at a woman in that way. In that way. Oh, how far we've sunk since then. In 1940, Britain entered its first period of rationing with butter, bacon and sugar all impacted, thereby destroying any hope of a decent full English breakfast. In 1992, former President George H.W. Bush was taken ill, causing him to vomit quite profusely on the Japanese Prime Minister. In 2016, on this very day, David Bowie released Black Star, his 26th, and as it turns out, his final studio album. And in 2021, Twitter banned Donald Trump. Whatever happened to that great orange lump, I wonder? Now, before we get into the real meat of the show, I'm going to remind you very quickly of our question of the day, which hopefully looks like this. Yeah, did you make any New Year's resolutions? And if so, I realise we're only a week into the new year, but if so, are you still sticking to them a whole week later? Let us know in the chat. Personally, I made several, and I'm right on track with several of them at the moment. My first New Year's resolution is to read 50 books in 2024, and I've already taken down the first two 1 week in, so I'm well ahead of schedule. I'm also going to be writing more by hand, which is why I've now got a writing desk behind me, which you can see is in full operation. There are pens, there are notepads, and there are various other writing instruments. I'm going to be using that a whole lot more as well. And there's one other thing that I'm going to be working on as well, but we'll come back to that in just a moment. But we need to hear from you. Have you made any New Year's resolutions, and how are you getting on? Are you sticking by them? Let us know in the chat, and we'll come back to that right at the end of the show. But before we get to that, this. Yeah, now I said I was working on another thing for this here new year, and it is something that I'm terming loosely persist and resist. In other words, I'm going to be more focused on this show and upon my work this year, and I'm going to be resisting far more outside influences that get in the way of all of that. I think we all know that many of the views expressed here on this show are not universally popular. I can live with that. I've always been good with that. There's more than enough people out there peddling false optimism without me joining in. So this year, I'm going to be separating myself from all of that and become laser focused on this show and on the community we've got built around it, and about just the things that are affecting the industry at grassroots level. Never mind what's happening up in the ether, in the ivory towers. I'm going to be focused on what's happening in the real industry. And all of that will become clear over the coming days and weeks. But here is a quick film which I think kind of sums up my attitude going into 2024.
Nobody watches you harder than the people that don't like you. So give them a show they'll never forget.
So yeah, if you're watching in Worthing or Hemel Hempstead or anywhere like that, I hope you enjoy the show, because I'm looking at something else, not bothered what you're up to even remotely. So let's get on with the show, shall we?
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Right, as many of you know, Kobelco has been on a bit of a roll recently, upgrading and extending its excavator range. Well, one of those newer excavators has now found its way into Ireland, and it's made one customer very happy indeed.
My name is Carl Riley and I work for DM Groundworks located in Clonalvy, County Meath, Ireland. So recently Declan, the owner of DM Groundworks, has purchased this SK 270-7. Yeah, we also have a Kobelco 140-7 and we have an SK 270-5. There's a couple of differences I've noticed so far. The noise reduction in the cab is a lot better on the -7 compared to the -5, and the controls are very responsive on the -7 compared to the -5, and the hydraulic system seems to be upgraded as well. There seems to be a lot more control while tracking and trying to control the machine at the same time.
Yeah, I make no secret whatsoever of my love for all things Kobelco, and I'm hoping to catch up with them in just over a few weeks' time. Now that reminds me, obviously, you all know that the Intermat show is taking place in Paris in April of this year. But before that, there is a pre-Intermat gathering during which the various exhibitors will be giving the press a sneak preview of what they will have in store come April. The pre-Intermat meeting is scheduled to take place in Paris at the end of next week, and we will be there. When I say we, I mean me and my son Fred. All things being equal, we're still working on the travel arrangements, to be perfectly honest, but all things being equal, I will be broadcasting on Wednesday next week, as per usual, and then I'm going to be jumping on a train into London, grab the Eurostar to Gay Paris, where I will be stationed for 2 days. Now, this might mean a gap in our broadcasting schedule, which, given the fact that we've just taken 2 weeks off, is not ideal. However, it does mean that we'll be able to bring you the details of just some of the equipment we're likely to see at Intermat in April, and we're going to be getting up close and personal with some of the real stars of the international construction equipment world. I'll keep you posted of our travel plans and let you know exactly what it is. If we can possibly broadcast live from Paris, I will certainly do so. It'll be a good test run, because we're certainly planning to do that when April rolls around. So keep watching. Be back after this. Before we move on, I do want to address a very quick question here from our friend Dan Cullen. Will you ever be going to Ireland for any videos on demo jobs? Funny you should say that. I don't know if I told you this before the Christmas break, but my son Fred, who does all of our fancy video work, is actually now working with David Lloyd Leisure. Not full-time, but he's on retainer to do their photography and that kind of thing. And he was scheduled to be going to Ireland this week. but they postponed it. He is due to be going to Dublin. In answer to your question, I would love, Dan, to get over to Ireland. Not been for quite some time. And it was only recently I bumped into the main man at McCormack Demolition, which has gone through a few changes. I won't bore you with all of that, but hopefully, yes, I'd love to get myself back over to Ireland. As I say, my travel diary, I've already put into my Google Calendar exactly where it is we're going to be this year, and it includes places like, obviously, France for Intermat. We're hoping to go to Las Vegas again for the Mine Expo show. That's in September, and various other points in between. But I'll be keeping you posted. But obviously, like to get back to Italy at some point. Now, here on this show, we do love ourselves a bit of a green machine. We love a bit of Senebogen. We love a bit of Avant Techno. And we also love a bit of tech and telematics. So what if we could combine the two? A bit like this. Yeah, great to have Merlo back on the show after a bit of an absence. It's been quite a while. Speaking of absentees, stick around. We've got another one coming up for you right after this.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
So I'd like to tell you a very quick story. Many moons ago, when I had my parting of the ways with the NFDC, I decided to start my own rival magazine called the Demolition Magazine, and I was going to launch it about a month later, basically to beat the NFDC to their next edition. It was driven out of anger. Excuse me. It was driven out of anger and vengeance. So I had given no real thought about how I might finance the thing in such a short space of time. I called lots of companies, told them about my plans and begged them for their advertising support. Some just said no. Some asked lots of questions and then said no. A few asked questions and penciled themselves in. But there was one company that said yes immediately and without hesitation. That company was Leeds-based attachment specialist Northentrack. And Andy Hare has been a supporter of this show in precisely the same way that he was a supporter of the magazine. Everything that we do, Andy Hare seems to be on board, and for that I shall be forever grateful. So thanks for that, Andy. So by way of a thank you, here's a bit of Northentrack action just for you. Lots of very good attachments out there and some very good companies, but I'm a firm believer that this business is a people business. So if you're in the market for attachments and you want to deal with someone you can actually trust, Andy Hare is your man. And there's Dan Cullen. Morning, Dan, saying we need these attachments here. Like I say, you can find Andy over at northentrack.com. Just Northentrack, northern as in up north, track as in track.com. Go and have a look. We need to crack on because still got bits to get through. So let's have a bit of this.
If you would like to buy a limited edition Break Fast show sticker, head on over to buymeacoffee.com/demolition news/extras.
Yeah, we did. I'm just going to throw that up from our friend Jim Turner. Morning, Jim, and Happy New Year to you. Another good tune, Shades of Portishead. Yes, there are Shades of Portishead and a bit of Massive Attack as well. Again, I have decreased my screen time. I was down 15% last week, but I am going to be spending a bit more time working on the music on these things because I think the show itself has got a bit of a flavour and a bit of a vibe going on, but I want that reflected in the music as well. So yes, that's all part of the plan. Let me get that off the screen and go back to where I need to be. We've discussed countless times here on the show, electric machines present us with a series of conundrums. Among them, if we have to go down the battery route, most instances that means stopping work during the day to recharge. Alternatively, we can have a machine plugged in directly into the mains, but that means we then have the hazard of trailing cables. Or does it? It's not what you'd call a particularly attractive solution, is it? who wants to drive a machine that's wearing a big pointy hat? However, I have to say, it does get the job done. And an application like that, I can certainly see that working. But what about you folks? You are the experts. You are the guys behind the levers as we speak. What do you make of that Shantui solution? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it indifferent? Or, as we used to say, and we will continue to say, is it hot or is it not? Let us know in the chat. Now, I do want to throw over, we are going to go into the chat properly in just a second, but we've had a comment here from, where is it? Dan Cullen. Dan asks, are you going to do a Friday join-in video? Yes, but I've been thinking, and I've been doing a lot of thinking actually over the 16 days that I wasn't actually here and present. And one of the things I've been thinking about, we talk about things, well, okay, we talk about things like mental health here on the show and about checking in on each other and making sure we're all hunky-dory and all of that kind of thing. And I've been wondering if we actually dedicate the Friday show to just chat. I mean, I'm more than happy to dish up videos if that's what people want. But if anybody wants us to switch or partially switch, give over half the show where we do a couple of videos and then we just hit the go live button and we all sit around and have a good old chat. There's more to that than just mental health, though. I am somewhat concerned about the parlor state of the UK demolition and construction industry. I've already said in my predictions for the new year, I reckon we're going to lose more companies. If we lose more companies, we're going to lose jobs. I'm sure Dan Cullen can reflect that in the activity over on his WhatsApp groups, people looking for work. I think it's going to be a tough year. And if we can provide you guys with somewhere to come and vent your spleen and have a moan and a bitch or a whine or come up with suggestions or whatever it might be, then the door is open. If that's the way you would like us to proceed, then we will most certainly do that. We do have a community here. We do have a platform here. We've got a huge audience. I mean, as a result of adding 153,000 Instagram followers, I am currently speaking to a potential audience of somewhere in the region of 500,000 people. Obviously, nowhere near any of them actually tune in. It's a very, very small percentage that actually tune in live. We get a lot more views afterwards. But if we can come up with some sort of format where we all sit around and chat about the issues of the day, the challenges of working in demolition and construction, coming up with solutions, be they equipment related or work related, then yes, please let us know. Let me know here. Let me know in the WhatsApp group. Just let me know if that's the way you would like us to proceed. Then we will be more than happy to do just that. Now, speaking of chat, that pretty much wraps up the main part of this morning's show. My apologies if it's been a bit disjointed. I've done a couple of practice runs with the dual screen setup. It all seemed fine, but I didn't actually have an audience to worry about at that point. So my apologies for if it was a bit disjointed today, but I'm going to switch over in just a second. I'm going to roll the outro actually in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into the chat, which is over there. If you can't stick around for that, please stay safe, look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. But if you do have the time and the inclination, please stick around. The Craic will begin immediately after a final word from our key show sponsor. And just while I remember it, there is another slight shortcoming for our Instagram followers. If you're watching on Instagram, we are limited, not through anything that we do, but we are limited to just 1 hour. Where are we now? We're at 31 minutes. We've got another half an hour. So if you're on Instagram and you'd like to make your presence felt, please drop us a line if you would be so kind. It's going to be a lot easier if you do it over on Facebook or YouTube or Instagram or LinkedIn or Twitter, actually. We'll be able to see you. So I did mention the fact that we're going to be back with the Craic, and we will immediately after this word from our key show sponsor. Right, onto the proper glasses now, so I can actually see what everyone's saying. Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much indeed for being here. Is it me? That's better. I just realised that my microphone was a little bit, what's the word? Pissed, I think. So, happy 2024. First off the mark, landmark, Dan Cullen. Morning, Dan, and happy New Year to you, my friend. Hope you're fitting well. He's over on YouTube this morning. I can see from the other screen that's over there. We are broadcasting live on YouTube. I think the comments have been playing up a little bit this morning. Not entirely sure why, but we are over there live. But Dan Cullen, happy 2024, and welcome back. Good morning to Gary Muirhead. Good morning, guys. Happy 2024, everyone. And good morning to you, Gary. We will come to the question of the day in just a second. But Gary, you will be pleased to know I've been working hard while you've been putting your feet up and stuff. I have in my possession, I have 21, count them, 21 questions of the day. That should actually be enough to see me right the way through January. But if you've got any that you'd like to offer, Gary, please fire away, because I'm fairly sure there's one or two that seem familiar. I can't remember if we've done them before, but we may have done. Who else have we got here? Dan Cullen says, yeah, back in action in 2024. It's been a funny old break. I don't know about you guys. I've just realised one thing I haven't done is to put some money. Put some music behind us. There we go. So yes, it's been a funny old break. The first probably 7 days, I thoroughly enjoyed putting my feet up, watching a few movies, catching up on a bit of reading, not looking at the internet at all, not worrying about this show. And then it started to itch and I needed to get back, and I'm mighty glad that I am. I'm going to turn that down just a touch because that sounds a bit loud in my ear holes. Mark Whiting's here as well. Good morning, Mark. Happy New Year, and Happy New Year to you as well. So thank you very much indeed for joining us. And yes, I've just realised I've typed food morning. Maybe that's because I'm on a diet, which I am, but maybe I just can't type very quickly. The other point, and I did mention it, thankfully it now seems to have rectified itself, having taken the whole of the front part of the studio apart over Christmas and then put it back together again. I switched on this morning, and the first thing was this wasn't working, the microphone wasn't working. Second thing was that the Stream Deck wasn't working. I got the microphone working with about 10 minutes to spare, but I was fairly sure that the Stream Deck was going to let me down. Lo and behold, it didn't. So good news. Graham Footy Williams is here. Good morning to you, Graham. Hope you're fitting well, and a Happy New Year to you, sir. Chris Ford is here as well. Good morning, champions of Demolition. Happy New Year, and a Happy New Year to you as well, Chris. Yes, let me state, but I'm going to keep saying Happy New Year until we've done everybody, but let me just state for the record, hope you will have a happy, a safe, a prosperous, and a healthy New Year. Everyone, not just Chris, everyone. Footy says, happy humbug New Year. Kent Demolition, Dave Paget says, morning, Mark. Good morning to you, Dave. I am planning, it won't be this week, and it won't be next week, but I am planning to go down. I'm going to do Donut Day down at Kent Demolition. They do they do free donuts on a Friday. Can't do it this week, can't do it next week because of other commitments, but the week after that is looking pretty good. Looking good, Mark. Nice glasses. They're the usual ones, aren't they? Yeah, they're the usuals. Nothing new about that. They're there. There you are. Nothing new about those. These are different, however, because the vertical screen is a little bit harder to read. So, and frankly, I don't have to worry about the camera anymore because we're doing this bit. Glenn Johnston's here as well. Good morning and Happy New Year to everyone. Happy New Year to you as well, Glenn. Now, my question of the day. My question of the day, not Gary's. My question of the day. Did you make any New Year's resolutions? I did. I've vowed to myself that I will read 50 books this year, and I'm trying to do it with 2 books concurrently. I'm doing a fiction book and I'm doing a non-fiction book. I've already taken down one of each, and I'm now on to the second of each. It's been fairly easy so far because I've had no other distractions. I can just sit down of an evening, and I've got into the habit. A couple of things. I've now got a light behind me on the sofa, which is helpful. I've got my reading glasses in there, which is also helpful. But I've started playing white noise into my ears, so that while my wife is watching some true crime drama, I'm not distracted. I can just sit there and concentrate on the book. So yes, I've taken down Holly by Stephen King and a book by a guy called Nicholas Cole on the art and business of online writing. Thoroughly enjoyed Holly. Couldn't recommend it highly enough. The other one, did it teach me a lot? Taught me a few things, not as much as I would have liked, but we're now on to the second tranche of books. I'm doing Atomic Habits at the moment, which I started before, but I'm now going to go back and reread. But I'm also doing Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy. If anybody's a Cormac McCarthy fan, let me know what you think. So, did any of you make New Year's resolutions? I also mentioned the fact that I'm going to be writing more by hand. You can see, there is the writing desk. I've got notepads and note cards, and Lord alone knows what else. So you can expect to see more handwritten stuff from me in the near future. Dan Cullen says, like the new setup. Well done, Mark and Fred. Yeah, thank you very much indeed. I'll tell you now, the screen that I'm looking at now, the vertical screen over here, was actually my Christmas present from my good lady wife. I mentioned a while back that I wanted to get one to make this part of the show that much easier. Thankfully, she was paying attention. I couldn't justify the expense to myself, but she decided she could justify it to herself. And lo and behold, Christmas morning, I opened a big box containing a vertical screen, which is making this process a whole lot easier. Let's have a look. Graham Footy Williams says, I did talk to somebody at Ring Demolition. They want to have a chat with me at some point. Meet me in person if they do. Fantastic. I'll keep my fingers crossed for you. Incidentally, just on the subject of demolition down that part of the world, obviously Ring Demolition are based down Bristol way. I learned just a day or two ago that Downwell Demolition have set up shop down there as well. They've obviously got their facility over in Grays in Essex, or on the Essex-Kent border, just right by the Dartford Bridge. They're actually under the Dartford Bridge as it happens. But they've now set up shop down in, I think that's Bristol way or thereabouts. So if you're still looking footy, maybe drop a line over to Matt Phillips at Downwell Demolition, because they are setting up as we speak. Jim Turner. Good morning, Jim. Happy New Year to you. Missed you terribly. Missed everyone terribly. Glad to have you back. Gary Muirhead. So, question of the day was, do you have any New Year's resolutions? And Gary Muirhead says, yes, the same ones I always have every year. Yeah, I never stick to. Diet, lose weight, and drink less. Never works. Yeah, my diet is going okay. I'm about 5 pounds down so far. Just not. I got into some very bad food habits. I'm bearing in mind I'm a type 2 diabetic. I can't really afford to be doing that. I got into some bad food habits back end of last year, where I was being very lazy with my food intake, and I was eating basically stuff out of the freezer and ready meals and that kind of thing. I can't do that. So yes, I don't particularly enjoy the concept of a roast dinner, but I do quite like the veg that goes with it. So I'm back on the veg kick, eating my body weight in vegetables at the moment, and it seems to be doing the trick. The weight's coming off and I'm feeling a lot better for it. So there you are. Jim Turner says, I'm not one for them really, but I promised myself more playtime and I'll plant this coming year, especially getting my little old crawler out the shed, as it hasn't turned the track in a few years. Make sure when you do that, Jim, do me a favour and point a camera at it, would you? That way round. Not that way, but that way. Love to see the old tractor. Love to see you get it started. Dan Cullen says, yes, I'm sticking to non-alcohol, read books and watch the show no matter what. Well, I particularly like your final point there. But yes, books. I got a couple for Christmas. As I say, I've already put one of those to bed. Bizarrely, I got my Stephen King book, the latest one, Holly, was a gift from my dogs. Quite how they knew what I like to read, I don't know, but they did, so yes, I've read that. But love to know what you're reading. Have you got any recommendations? I'm trying to break with my traditional tastes. I do like me a bit of horror, and I do like myself a classic from time to time. But I read The Road by Cormac McCarthy many moons ago. Thoroughly enjoyed it. So I took myself off to Waterstones this weekend, and lo and behold, there was a whole range of Cormac McCarthy books. So the first one I picked up was called Blood Meridian, which I think may have been his first. So I am reading that at the moment. If anybody's read it, let me know what you think. If you've got any other book recommendations, I'd love to hear from you, because I've got to get through another 48 this year. I didn't make any resolutions because I break them, so what's the point of making them in the first place? It's not worth it. It's a fair comment, and I listen, I know full well, I will fall off the wagon, and I will eat the occasional bad bit of food. I probably won't write anywhere near as much as I intend to, handwriting wise, but I'm going to try. But yeah, one of the plans that I've got for this year, which is kind of an aside, is this idea of I want to create more than I consume. So I want to be writing more than I'm reading. I want to be broadcasting more than I'm viewing YouTube. As I say, I've already got my screen time down by about 15%, and that is the plan. I'm going to stick with that if I possibly can. Glenn Johnston is skipping out of the New Year's resolutions as well. Oh yes, love it. Music says it all. Yeah, that is absolutely. Listen, I wouldn't say it was an epiphany, but I spent a lot of years, and I don't get me wrong. Let me be absolutely clear here. I've got some very good friends in the demolition industry and in the construction industry and that kind of thing. But somewhere along the line, I feel like I lost my way in that. My job as a journalist is not actually to be friends with these people. It's just to report the news and the happenings within the industry as honestly and as independently as I possibly can. And I think particularly while we were getting this show off the ground, I think there was a tendency to try to be friendly. And I don't mean that I'm actively going to be unfriendly, but I just need to separate the two. So, starting this year, I'm not worried about the thoughts of others. I'm not worried about collaborations and all that kind of thing. I'm just going to be laser focused on all the things that we're doing here. So that's kind of the plan. Let's have a look. What a video. Well done. Thank you very much indeed. And tune, says Jim Turner. Yeah, absolutely. We'll be seeing more of the Beast this year, the Australian one. Funnily enough, I had a message this morning from my mate Abigail over at Kobelco, Australia. I've responded already to see if we can get that on the move. I'll keep you posted as and when that happens. Haven't actually seen Ken Hatcher this morning, and he did drop me a line over the Christmas period to say that he may well be at a funeral today. Obviously, it looks like he probably is. And he's missed the sprockets, which is probably not a bad thing. Need to get that beacon fixed. That was on the Kobelco. I didn't notice, to be perfectly honest. Let's have a look. Looking good. Long undercarriage. I love the tune. The tune wasn't mine. It was actually a Kobelco one, but fair play to them. Did a very good job indeed. Will you ever be going to Ireland? Yes, I want to go to Ireland. Yes, I want to go to Scotland. Listen, I'll even factor in Wales if necessary. But yes, there are several countries on my to-do list. Obviously, I'd love to go back to Japan. I want to go back to the States. I love to go to Canada. Mainly because out of admiration for some of the Canadian demolition companies. Love to go and do that at some point. But yeah, closer to home. As I say, we're already off to Paris at least twice this year. But I'd love to do Ireland. I'd love to do Scotland, and I'm planning on both. Keep me posted. Will you be getting any giveaways, any hats planned? It's a good question, actually. I've not done one of these pre-show gatherings for a good few years. And I know back in the day, and I'm going back probably 10 years, they used to do like a pre-Baumer. I'm sure they still do. They used to do a pre-Intermat as well. And there were a few, you used to get a few goodie bags and that kind of thing. And then towards the end, around about 2018, 2019, it kind of seemed to dry up. It became a bit of a dry affair where you basically go and it's a networking opportunity. Yes, you get to hang out with people, but they're basically telling you what they've got planned and not much more than that. But Dan, I promise you, if there are any goodies to be had, I'll be sharing them. And incidentally, as part of the reconfiguration of this office, I did find some more bits and pieces that I will be giving away. There's a couple of things that I want to do. One of which is I want to feature the weather on this show. I realise it's not the most original idea in the world. I realise that all the evening and daytime news shows have a weather feature, but bearing in mind what we all do, or you do for a living, you're very dependent upon the weather. So I thought we would start the show each day with a weather report. Just throw up the Met Office weather report and say, if you're in the southeast, you're like, apparently we're going to get some snow today where I am. If you're working around this way, you'd probably like to know that. So I'm going to factor that in. The other one that I was planning, and Dan has kind of made me think about it in a different way, is I was planning to do what I had in my head as a feature called Mood Check. Mood is probably the wrong word, so I'm not going to use that as a proper title, but as I say, we talk an awful lot on this show about all things mental health and about how we're all feeling and everything else, but we tend to do it sporadically, and I just wonder if we could. What my original plan was to set aside, a couple of minutes each show to ask the question, "How are you doing?" No, never mind that. Never mind what you'd like us to hear. Be honest. How are you really doing? Are you okay? We've had Footy and our friend Peter McKenna out of work for some considerable time. I'm sure that's causing problems and stress and financial difficulty. Let's talk about it. But as we come to a bit later on, I know Dan has suggested maybe we set aside most, if not all, of the Friday show just to chat. Maybe that's an idea. If you've got any thoughts on that, please let me know. Dan says, question day, I've started saving so I can go to the shows in this year, in the UK this year, get more new updated hats, hoodies, t-shirts and equipment. Yep, fair play to you. Chris Ford, why make a resolution when I'm going to break it in record time? One of these days, not on second thought, never. Yes, absolutely. Mick Norton's here as well. Mick Norton, just a very quick one, and I completely forgot. If you are able, get yourself a copy of the very latest, it's only about a week old, the very latest edition of Earth Movers magazine, because there is an article in there, there's a feature article in there by Mick Norton on the Gainsborough machine that we discussed back end of last year. It's now out and about. If you'd like to get yourself a copy of that, get yourself off to WH Smith's or other good reputable newsagents and grab yourself a copy of Earth Movers, and then come on this show and tell Mick Norton what a star he is for having written the piece. Our friend Footy was enjoying the green of the Merlo machine. My God, Mark, your tunes are on fire this morning. As I say, it's all part of not the new look, it's the new sound. Makes me sound like a BBC radio. But seriously, I want to pay more attention to the music. We as I say, we've got a look. The look is the silly hat, the sunglasses, the backdrop, and all of the nonsense here. All of that is part of it. But I would like the music to reflect that as well. And I do. I've got a fairly varied taste in music, but I would love to reflect that in music. Speaking of music, and I do need to pause very quickly. I've already mentioned that this screen, what I'm looking at here, was a gift from my good lady wife. My youngest daughter, Courtney, bought myself and my wife tickets to ABBA Voyage in London, just over at Stratford. And for those that are uninitiated, obviously ABBA stopped making music together many moons ago, although they did release a few new tracks last year. But to my mind, ABBA are the greatest band of all time. And you can keep your Beatles. I love me some Rolling Stones. I love me some Radiohead. Love me some Guns N' Roses and all that. But to my mind, ABBA, greatest band of all time. And what they've done, ABBA themselves have basically had built a dedicated venue, as I say, just up the road from Stratford, so very close to the West Ham football stadium. And there is basically an AI installation where you can watch ABBA live, and without boring you with the details, they have digitally animated and re-aged the members of the band, the four members of the band, so you are watching them live on stage. They are AIs, but they are right there in front of you. I can honestly say it was one of the best nights out I've ever had. It was absolutely brilliant. Cried 4 times. That's how good it was. Winner Takes It All by ABBA is, to my mind, the perfect pop song. Seeing it live blew my mind. If you've got a chance, go and see ABBA Voyage. That's my advert done. Wish they were paying me for it. Great system, the telematics. That was on the Merlo machines, but can they be bypassed or hacked, says Dan Cullen. Read that Google accounts are being hacked by third-party cookies. No password required. It's unreal. I'm sure if you were really trying to do damage, you probably could. I know this is a comment that you've raised before, Dan, and I realise it's a valid comment. But one thing that does make me wonder about all of this, and I'm sure, maybe a disgruntled former employee or something like that. But why would you? Given all that the internet has to offer, and all the potential financial gain that you could make by hacking other systems, the banking systems, the financial systems, or whatever it might be, or given the damage you could do on a much broader spectrum, hacking somebody's Facebook account or something like that, why would you bother to hack the telematics on a telescopic handler. I can't think why that would happen, but then somebody's going to go and prove me wrong, aren't they? But it's a fair comment. Our friend Mick Norton says, great feature of the Merlo telescopic handlers is the automatic electronic recognition of different attachments and their respective safe working loads. Again, that is what technology does. That is precisely what it does. Now, one of the things that I know, I've discussed this at length with my mate Adrian McLean up at Armac Demolition, is when somebody specs a high-reach machine and they've spec'd it to take a carry a tool of, let's say, 2.5 tons of considerable height. But if you put a quick coupler on that, you've reduced the weight that you can use. If your attachment, if you go from a processor to a shear, for example, it's going to change the weight. With this, the system does it for you. It will actually tell you what it is that you're working with. Got to be the way forward. We need these attachments here, says Dan and Colin. As I say, Andy here up at Northentrack has been a great supporter both of this show and everything else that we do. Give him a call. Go and have a look at northentrack.com. I think you'll be impressed. Fudgy says, nice to see different attachments for the demolition trade. Really awesome. Nice to see what other attachments they can come up with. Help the trade move on. One of the other things that I think is remarkable about it's not remarkable, it's as it should be to my mind, particularly in something like attachments. Northentrack can custom make attachments. So if you want a particular type of attachment, but you want it to a certain spec or a certain size or weight or configuration, they can do that. And you can speak to the managing director, the owner of the business, and go through it with them, which has got to be the way forward. Let's have a look. Another good tune, Shades of Portishead. Indeed. Yeah, I have to say I was a little bit concerned about the comments over on YouTube this morning. Not sure what's going on. It's not us. I can see we're broadcasting live and okay, and that seems to be working okay. No idea what's actually happening with the comments over there. I can only apologise. Attachments on machines without leaving the cab. So it's automatic. You put the attachments on. Auto connects. Yep, absolutely right. Are you going to do a Friday join-in show? I'd like to hear from you. I can quite easily just go live, much as we've done today, play the videos, and then when we've done the first 25-30 minutes, just switch over, bring you guys up. You can join, you can actually come on the show and be a guest and all that kind of thing. We can do that. Absolutely fine doing that. Or I wonder if Friday, we might set aside Friday as the chat show. I'd love to hear from you. I mean, even if we, rather than doing 4 or 5 videos, Friday we do 2, maybe. Or maybe we do none at all. Or maybe we do 5. I'd love to hear from you. Look, I'd like to hear what you've got to say. Because one of the other things that this plays into, which I'm glad Dan brought this up. I mentioned I've read this book, The Art of Business of Online Writing. And one of the recommendations in there is to use social media for data collection. And I don't mean filling out forms and that kind of thing. But as it stands at the moment, when I write an article, and I've written a couple, I'll come back to that in just a second. When I write an article, I write it, I've had an idea, or there's a piece of news, and I write it and I send it out and I hope for the best. But you guys and girls are much, much closer to the coalface than I am. I would love, and I've done it before, but I'd love to make it a bit more formal in that, we discuss certain things which could then turn into an article or a video or both or a podcast episode. To actually get from you guys exactly what it is that is worrying you, concerning you, making you happy, making you unhappy, whatever it might be. So to take that from maybe a dedicated chat show on a Friday and then convert that into something else to share with the wider industry, I think that would be a great way forward. Let us know what you think. Yeah, that Shantui machine, can't say it was a particularly attractive solution, the cone on top of the machine there with the cable coming out. I have to say though, it works. It definitely takes the cables up off the ground. Is it better? I don't know. Dan Cullen's not convinced. Looks more of a hindrance than anything. Yeah, and I do wonder just how far you can travel with it, and what about if there's other machines moving around? I'm not entirely convinced. Let's have a look. Footy says, can't see that working on a building site where you get loads of machines around doing big movements. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Is it hot or is it not? Dan Cullen is in no question whatsoever. He says not. The height required for this machine makes it unavailable in certain areas. Yes, I'm sure it would. However, on the flip side, Jim Turner says the Shantui thing is hot in the right environment, like inside a fixed area, and the mast doesn't matter as it's not seen from the seat. It's a fair point. As I say, if you were doing a specific application where you're not moving very far, like on base application, you're working in a transfer shed or something like that, I can see it working. So look, Dan says, I think you're right. A Friday show could be cool. Have an open chat, say 5 minutes per person. Listen, I can actually put 10 people on the screen. I think I can have 10 people on screen. I think it's me and 9 others. I'd need to check that. But we could literally have a free-for-all. I could put all of you guys, most of you guys, on the screen at the same time. And, bearing in mind, most of you are members of our WhatsApp group, we could actually, in advance, come up with ideas of, the things that we like to discuss, be it sustainability, mental health, attachments, women in the industry, whatever the bloody hell you like. We could discuss that in advance, and then, yes, we could sit around and have a good old chinwag. Dan says, I'm looking forward to another fantastic year on the Breakfast Show. So am I, and it's good to be back at work. I totally agree with that. Definitely plan to visit Kent Demolition this year. Are you open on a Saturday? I am sure they are open on a Saturday, but the donuts are a Friday. And that's the clincher for me, the donuts on the Friday. Having said that, they may have a few leftovers, probably past their best. I'm going to say a very quick good morning and a very happy new year to Steve Smith. Good morning, Steve. Thank you very much indeed for joining us over from Facebook. Great to have you here. Mick Norton says, may all your troubles last as long as your New Year's resolutions. Well, as I say, it's the 8th. I'm 8 days into the new year, and all of my New Year's resolutions are sticking so far. And I think that's part of it. I think part of actually sharing it here, I'm kind of making myself accountable. And I know Gary will be taking notes about this time, if in 2 weeks' time, rather than having read another 3 books or 4 books, I've still only read the 2, Gary, hold me to account. Dan, anybody, hold me to account. I'm reading self-help books on brain health. In a manner of speaking, so am I. I haven't ordered the book yet, and I am planning to do so because I've got to do some stuff. I've got to get some more books out of the way. But there's a book that I'd like to read on Stoicism. Won't bore you with the details if you know what Stoicism is, But the more I've thought about it, the more I've kind of come to the conclusion, and here we are, first show of the new year. Here's me sharing, or probably oversharing, and we've probably just lost the Instagram audience, by the way, because the hour is up. I've kind of felt for quite some time that there is kind of a gap in my life. Happily married, fortunate to have 4 kids that I love, 3 grandchildren that I love, a couple of dogs that I love as well. All is hunky-dory. I've got this show, I've got you guys and everything else. But I feel like there's a gap. I go fishing from time to time, but not as much as I would like. I'm a fair weather fisherman. And I do feel like there is a bit of a gap. Now, I am completely non-religious, completely non-spiritual, no belief in that whatsoever. But I do wonder if there's something else. And as I say, there is a book on modern-day Stoicism, and I'm planning to read that on the basis that it does seem to take, some of the teachings from way back, the Roman Empire, effectively, and to try to apply them to modern life. And as I say, part of it, I've been watching some videos on this, and part of it is what's driving my determination for this year, just to be completely laser focused. I wish my fellow creators nothing but success. I hope that 2024 is a record year for all of them. but I'm not planning to be watching. I'm going to be creating rather than consuming. Mick Norton says, what does he say? Reading The War Pianist by Mandy Rowbotham. Compulsive reading. Hang on one second. The War Pianist, Randy Rowbotham. I have noted that down. As I say, I am planning to read 50 books this year. 2 down. I'm probably a third of the way through another one and halfway through another one as well. So, yeah, I will be batting way above my average to begin with, but then work will take over. So, but I'm looking for new bits and pieces. New comments are better. Thank you very much indeed, Dan. I realise it does require me to look back and forth, but I mean, we've done dual camera setups before, and I wonder actually we might even do that again. If I set up a camera over this side, it's that side to you, set another camera up so that when I do turn my head to look at the comments, you may be getting a head on, and we'd have to put a switcher on, but that's all beside the point. So yes, there you are. That's basically all of the comments done. I've mentioned reading. I've mentioned trying to cut down on my consumption of social media and spend more time actually doing it. I've published 2 new articles today. One is on Demolition Insider, and it's called Beyond the Echo Chamber. One of my concerns is that demolition folk, and this is not peculiar to demolition, but because that's where I'm most closely allied to, demolition folk get together with other demolition folk at demolition events, through the Institute of Demolition Engineers, the NFDC, whatever it might be. So demolition people meet with demolition people to talk about demolition and demolition things, which is fine, which is understandable, and which is entirely justified. But does that mean that they're not looking at some of the other developments that are going on, like the developments in autonomy that are taking place over in the mining industry? Are they looking at future fuel developments that are taking place over in the automotive and transportation area? Really, I just wonder if they're doing that. So that's over on Demolition Insider. If you'd like the link to that, go and have a look at our WhatsApp group, or just look for Demolition Insider online and you will find it there. The other one that I've dropped this morning is it has the very catchy title of Who Wants to See a Dead Body? Yeah, who wants to see a dead body? I saw my first dead human when I was 12 years old. I was playing football at the time on a bit of waste ground fairly close to where I lived. Me and a bunch of my friends were kicking a football and generally having a high old time at 12 years old, like you do. And one of our friends came over and said, literally, who wants to see a dead body? Well, being 12, we all went, yeah, that sounds like a hell of a laugh. The stupidity of youth. So yeah, we took a short walk, and it was literally a couple of 100 yards. And a guy had basically killed himself on the railway tracks. He'd waited for a train to come along and had laid on the tracks. And yeah, had died. Turns out he was a patient at a local mental health clinic, and somebody had witnessed him waiting for the train and then lying down as the train approached. So I've written about that. I'm actually quite pleased with it. It's as I say, it's available to read. If you're in the WhatsApp group, you can go and have a look at that. It's called Who Wants to See a Dead Body? If you follow me on LinkedIn, you can also get the link there as well. So please let me know what you think. I'd love to hear from you. Mick Norton has just said, view film, the Bible, it's better than the book. I have to tell you this. I can never remember the name of the title that somebody is given. Chaplain. Okay, so some years ago, the National Federation of Demolition Contractors had a chaplain, a guy called Father Dennis McGillicuddy, one of the nicest people you are ever likely to meet. As I say, I am completely without faith, completely non-spiritual, but he's still one hell of a nice guy. Proper Catholic Irish priest, but an absolute star, a really, really nice guy. Anyway, I was at an NFDC convention one year, and there's Father Dennis sat at breakfast with his full English or Irish or whatever it might be, and he was literally reading the Bible. And one of the members of the NFDC walked over, tapped him on the shoulder and said, "I don't want to give the game away, but you do know he dies in the end." Which is one of the greatest lines I think I've ever heard. Now, our friend Wolfwelder has just joined us. Good morning, my friend. Wolfwelder, I don't know if you're willing or able. I feel slightly weird calling you Wolfwelder. I'm Mark. What's your name? I don't. Please stick with Wolfwelder69 as your handle. But let us know your name, because I'd love to greet you by your first name rather than by your YouTube handle. But lovely to see you here. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Hope you're enjoying the stickers, and a very, very happy new year to you. Happy 2024. That's going to pretty much do us. As I say, we lost the Instagram crowd a little while ago. There we are. Garrett. Our friend Wolfwelder is called Garrett. I've never met a Garrett before. You are my first. I'm noting that down so that I don't forget it. This is all part of me writing things down these days. I won't bore you with it. So yes, Garrett, fantastic. Thank you very much indeed for being here. Thanks for your support over last year. Hope we get the same again this year. That's going to do us for today. We'll be back tomorrow, 10 a.m. Got a full week, full program this week. A bit disjointed next week because of that trip to France, but I'll keep you posted on that. As I say, if I can possibly do anything live from Paris, if the internet and the Wi-Fi allows, I will most certainly do that. But I'll keep you posted on all that. In the meantime, thank you for being here. You never know with these things. I did wonder if I was going to come back on the first show of 2024 and find that you'd all found better things to do with your mornings. I'm delighted that's not the case. So thank you very much indeed for being here. I'll be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. And when I say here, I mean I'll be here on this show, which is broadcast on Facebook, on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, and as of today, now on Instagram as well. So if you're on any of those platforms, you can tune in live and take part. Thank you very much indeed for being here, everybody. And as I've said it multiple times, this is the last time I'm going to do so. Happy New Year. Thanks indeed for being here. I'll see you tomorrow. All the very best.